Acts 14:8-20. Gods or men? There was a man in Lystra who couldn't walk. He sat there, crippled since the day of his birth. He heard Paul talking, and Paul, looking him in the eye, saw that he was ripe for God's work, ready to believe. So he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Up on your feet." The man was up in a flash, jumped up and walked around as if he'd been walking all his life. When the crowd saw what Paul had done, they went wild, calling out in their Lycaonian dialect, "The gods have come down. These men are gods." They called Barnabas Zeus, and Paul Hermes, since Paul did most of the speaking. The priest of the local Zeus shrine got up a parade. Bulls and banners and people lined right up to the gates, ready for the ritual of sacrifice. When Barnabas and Paul finally realized what was going on, they stopped them. Waving their arms, they interrupted the parade, calling out, "What do you think you're doing? We're not gods. We are men just like you, and we're here to bring you the message, to persuade you to abandon these silly God superstitions and embrace God Himself, the living God. We don't make God, He makes us. And all of this, sky, earth, sea, and everything in them. In the generations before us, God let all the different nations go their own way, but even then He didn't leave them without a clue, for He made a good creation, poured down rain and gave bumper crops. When your bellies were full and your hearts happy, there was evidence of good beyond your doing. Talking fast and hard like this, they prevented them from carrying out the sacrifice that would have honored them as gods. But just barely. Then some Jews from Antioch and Iconium caught up with them and turned the fickle crowd against them. They beat Paul unconscious, dragged him outside the town, and left him for dead. But as the disciples gathered around him, he came to and got up. He went back into town, and the next day left with Barnabas for Derbe.